New Orleans signed C.J. Spiller for something other than sitting on the fucking bench.
31 other passes that should have been intercepted.
So that's why I have David Johnson on my board higher.
If you're doing a live draft, wait till you're drunk to draft this guy. We welcome you to the Fifth Down.
What up, Fifth Downers? You're here at the Fifth Down, giving you the extra down advantage. Today we are doing episode 18. We are doing the NFC North and NFC South. Have K-Mo with us today.
What's up, Fifth Downers? I got a case of that Fifth Down syndrome. What's going on?
Yeah, Down syndrome babies here. All right, so unfortunately you were unable to make the last show. It was a pretty good one, and you actually have something to caveat off of that about Todd Gurley, actually, right?
Yeah, interesting stat. I was reading an article on NFL.com. There's an article by Matt Harmon I found really interesting, and I read it, and it was a case against Todd Gurley as a top 5 fantasy pick. And reading this article, it makes a lot of sense to me, and it was some red flags that I already seen before. Number one, Todd Gurley does not play on a good team. Jared Goff is obviously, if he becomes the starter at some point, he's more comfortable operating out of the shotgun than anything. I think that hurts Gurley's value a little bit too. Not that I'm saying he's going to have a bad season. I just think if you're going to spend a top 5 pick on him, where he's going in most fantasy drafts, you need to be wary of that. And the biggest red flag that I've seen is, I think that, I know we brought this up earlier, but I think that Benny Cunningham is kind of getting overlooked. For 71.3% of all third down plays the Rams had last year, Benny Cunningham was on the field. So obviously the Rams have a lot of confidence in him as far as a pass catcher out of that backfield. Todd Gurley, I believe, only had 28 receptions out of the backfield last year as a rookie, and since they re-signed Benny Cunningham, I don't think that role is going to increase, whereas you have another first-round pick running back in David Johnson that I know I've tooted his horn a couple times, but he is like on a good team.
We did kind of touch on this in the last show about maybe Benny Cunningham as being a little bit overlooked. Possibly, I mean, you got to think he's at least the handcuff of that team, and maybe he does have a little bit of standalone value if he is that third down back. Matt Harmon, I know he does a lot of great work, and I thought that was a pretty good article that you brought up. So nice insight there.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that Benny Cunningham is at the very least, a late round, dartboard pick. I think that he is getting a little overlooked though. But back on track too. Also in the world of basketball, Jimmy Butler from the Chicago Bulls says that he's if he was in the NFL, he would be a better wide receiver than Antonio Brown and Demaryius Thomas. I think the only response that warrants is a laugh.
I mean, it's kind of easy to say stuff like this when you know that you have no opportunity to actually back that up. I mean, it wasn't a couple years ago, didn't Chris Johnson say that he could beat Usain Bolt in a 100-yard dash or something like that?
Oh, yeah. That was a bunch of crap, too.
All right. Without further ado, we're going to jump into the AFC North first. Who do you think has the favor to take this division? I mean, obviously, you got to think it's between Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. Who do you think is going to take this division?
Well, I think it all depends on health. I think it's going to be a heavily contested division, but I think that if Andy Dalton stays healthy all season, I think that the Bengals have a real shot of winning this division. But I think my money's still on Pittsburgh this year.
Yeah, I tend to go with Pittsburgh a little bit too, just for the fact that I'm kind of a Pittsburgh fan a little bit. I wouldn't say that they're my team per se, but I definitely like them this year for 2016.
Oh, I love that passing situation. Ben's got all those weapons. He's getting Le'Veon Bell back for an extra game because his suspension was overturned, which is also part of the news and notes. And the other thing, too, is I think this really just hinges on Big Ben's health.
Yeah, I mean, he missed 4 games last year due to injuries. And it seems like the team as a whole kind of struggled while he was out, especially at the skill position. Antonio Brown obviously didn't do very well with him.
Yeah.
So some interesting stats for Antonio Brown in the splits without Big Ben. He had 5 catches for 42 yards, 3 catches for 45 yards, 3 catches for 24 yards, and he did have one game where he had 6 catches for 124 yards, but 0 touchdowns.
Wow, yeah, and that's pretty eye-popping, too, because you got to think about it, that Antonio Brown's fantasy value really does hinge on Big Ben's health next year.
Yeah, it's an even more interesting split when you look at the games where he did have Big Ben. He had 8 games over 100 yards with Big Ben, and he had 4 games over 150 yards with Big Ben, and he never finished with less than 11 targets with Big Ben.
Wow, and that goes to tell you that he's definitely looking downfield for Antonio Brown.
Big Ben. Rico Suave finally joined us. I thought he was a lost cause.
Oh, wow.
Never a lost cause, baby. Never a lost cause.
So,
Johnny.
Now we're fully equipped for today's show.
I wouldn't go that far, brother, but I just got done with my fantasy football draft for 2016 on my ship, and I wanted to get your inputs on things, and you're always a good source of information, so I just wanted to come by and say hello.
All right. So we were just going over. We just started going over the Pittsburgh Steelers. We were talking about Antonio Brown's splits with Big Ben and without him, and I was just doing up the math. And if you prorate those games he played with Big Ben to a 16-game season, he'd have 216 targets, 158 receptions, 2,132 yards, 13 touchdowns.
That's insane. And you want to hear something, Johnny? I have Antonio Brown as my first-round pick and Ben Roethlisberger as my fifth-round pick.
It's an interesting stat. It does pose a little bit of risk. Obviously, we were going over Big Ben's health issues. Big Ben, when he played, he was amazing. He played 12 games. He had 8 out of his 12 games over 300 yards. In 6 out of his 12 games, he had 350 yards or more. And
wow.
six out of his 12 games were multi-touchdown games.
So he's pretty much good for 350 and 2 touchdowns if he plays. But is he going to play? That's the question.
In half his games, he had over 350 yards last year.
So he's got a 50% chance last season.
Pretty much. Kimo, are you at all, though, a little bit worried about this offense now? I mean, they're without Le'Veon Bell for 3 games. Montavious Bryant's not going to be here this year. They're potentially going to be without Ladarius Green. Are you a little bit worried about the explosiveness of this offense now with all these players out?
I'm actually not, and I'll tell you why. 2 reasons. With Ladarius Green out, that's opened the door for Jesse James at tight end. And as I read the other day, it sounds like Jesse James and Ben Roethlisberger are having a pretty good red zone combination. There were some rave reviews in practice, and it sounds like there's some good chemistry going on, so I don't think that's a death sentence without Ladarius Green. And second of all, with the Le'Veon Bell situation, D'Angelo Williams did a good job of holding his own last year with Le'Veon Bell getting injured. So I really don't see it. I think it's easy to get worried about these things, but I don't think that this is necessarily a death sentence for this Pittsburgh team.
Hey, I tend to agree with most of that. It's a question for both of you. Do you guys, Le'Veon Bell being suspended for the first 3 games, is Le'Veon Bell still a first-rounder, or do you think he's more of a second-rounder? Like, where do you guys see him at in a redraft league?
I think probably like the top. I would have to say it's the top 5 second-rounder, but nonetheless, I think that moves him out of the first round in a standard, like, say a 10-team league.
What about Suave? Where do you stand on this?
So I'm completely off base with what you guys have to think about this, and maybe I'm not the one that, maybe I'm not the one to do my homework on this, but I thought of him as more of like, maybe a 4th-round pick, because you think about it, he's going to miss a few games, and you're going to have to make do without him, but once he comes back, he's going to be a stud. But I was, like, looking at him as, oh, wow, early 4th round, and he's there. That's a steal. Needless to say, I didn't get him. The draft I did, he was picked up in the 2nd round, late 2nd round, and I thought to myself, like, that's a little much for me, but I don't doubt it. When he comes back, he's going to be a stud. Like,
I definitely think he's more of a he's more than a fourth round pick. I do think he's probably in that second round.
Yeah.
But with that being said, if he's going in the second round, missing 3 games, there's probably not a chance in hell I'd ever take him right there, just for the fact that I love so many receivers in the second round that I just don't see Le'Veon Bell making my team. And for the simple fact that if you get Bell, you almost want to handcuff him with D'Angelo Williams. But the issue with that is D'Angelo Williams is going in the 6th round. Like, I really don't want to pay that kind of price.
Yeah, if he's missing 3 games.
I think D-Will's ADP is just getting out of control right now.
Yeah, honestly, I've done a lot of mock drafts, and I don't see anyone where I'm not taking a receiver in the second round. I love the receivers going in the second round. I think I might take a running back in the first, but I love those receivers that are going in the second round, early third round. I love that.
I mean,
I got Keenan Allen as my final pick of the second round, and I was popping.
Yeah, if he's slipping back there, that's excellent. I was talking to you about that actually. There is some drafts where he does tend to slip towards that back of the second. Although if you're in a draft with me, you're never going to get him there because I'm probably higher on Keenan Allen than most people. I would even consider taking him in the back of the first. That's how high I am on him.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that he's going to outpace a lot of receivers in targets, and that's the real money stat that you look for. If they're getting the ball thrown in their direction, getting those targets, they're going to get some of those receptions. I think that the only variable for Keenan Allen not being a top 10 receiver next year is his health.
I think it's more of the fact that I'm not really worried about his health. What I'm worried about is his touchdown total, which he was on pace for 8 last year. But he's never really been a touchdown guy. We've already touched on that a little bit. But Pittsburgh's number 2 receiver, it looks like they're leaning more towards Wheaton, but also Sammy Coates could get in there. Some interesting notes on Marcus Wheaton. Weeks 1 through 10, he had only 16 receptions for 273 yards and a touchdown. In Week 12 alone, 9 catches for 201 yards and a touchdown.
Wow.
So, and from that point on, he did okay. He had like a couple of 50-yard games, 60-yard games, 70-yard games, but from weeks 1 through 10, he was pretty much a ghost.
So you don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah, I think I actually, in one of our leagues, Johnny, I think I actually drafted Marcus Wheaton with a really late pick, and I ended up just dropping him after 2 weeks because he was totally ghosted off the radar. I really don't see anything. I do see that it's kind of a prove-it year for him because he's a free agent after this year. So if he wants high market value in free agency, he's going to have a strong year. So that's his incentive. But I also have heard just so many rave reviews about Sammy Coates that I really don't see why not. He's been flashy in training camp. I think that he could potentially, or Hayward the Bay, he could potentially steal that number 2 spot. I don't think it's safe by any means with Wheaton.
I mean, the only couple of knocks I have on Sammy Coates is even in college, the biggest problem with him has not been like his speed or anything like that, but the fact that he does tend to have a little bit of issues catching the ball. And he's shown that a little bit in preseason where he's having some issues catching the ball. Although he did make a couple of nice, he did make a couple of good catches last game. You said he fumbled against Detroit.
He had 2 fumbles against Detroit.
Oh, really?
And I believe he lost both.
Yeah, I remember the first one.
Wow, that's not good. Yeah, I didn't watch the game, so I wouldn't have known. But yeah, I don't know. I've heard good things about him in training camp, but obviously if it doesn't translate on the field, then it doesn't. But I still don't think that Marcus Wheaton is the number 2 receiver in this offense with Bryant suspended. I really don't think that his spot as the number 2 receiver is completely safe.
I feel like it's going to be all Antonio Brown, honestly.
I mean, no argument against that.
With Bryant being gone, there's nobody to challenge Brown for the majority of those carries, receptions. Once Bell comes back, that's going to really balance things out. Bell can catch the ball out of the backfield. Bell can run the ball, and they'll be more balanced. But, as far as receivers go, Jesse James is their tight end. Yeah, he's maybe average at best. I don't see any other receivers that are really downfield threats or guys that are going to get a lot of receptions. I see Marcus Wheaton as a guy that's going to go late in the draft if he gets drafted at all, and if you do draft him, he's not going to start.
All right. Well,
that's my opinion.
Before we close out the Pittsburgh Steelers, you did say, yes, Marcus Wheaton will go a little bit later. Here's the ADPs on both Marcus Wheaton and Sammy Coates. You got, according to Fantasy Football Calculator, you got Marcus Wheaton beginning of the 10th. You got Sammy Coates as a mid-10th round pick. Which one, if you guys had to choose, would you pick to be on your team?
Neither.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably shy away from both, or I might just, do a little dark horse and get, like, Hayward Bay, like, late, or, like, pick him up off the waiver wire.
Yeah, I don't really see myself going after a guy like Wheaton, but if I'm towards that later end of the draft, because I also seen Sammy Coates go a lot later than the 10th round, that would probably be the guy that I'd probably target if I had to choose between those two, just because of the speed upside that he has. And, I think that'll do it for the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll move on to the other contenders in this division, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Cincinnati Bengholes.
The Bengals.
We got Andy Dalton, who had a pretty good season last year before he went down. He had 4 300-yard games, 25 touchdowns, and only 7 interceptions, and he has now outscored Big Ben 3 out of the last 4 years.
You know what? It's interesting about Andy Dalton. He is in my opinion, is going way too late in fantasy drafts. He's a real value alert on my end, because he's on average, where I've seen him in mock drafts go, is about like the 8th or the 9th round usually. Like he falls along the way. And
according to Fantasy Football Calculator, he's going in the 12th.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying that in a standard, like I think I did a 14-team draft last night, and I think he fell to me. I would have to check, but I believe it was like the 10th round, and I was like, "Fuck, that's a steal." And with a guy that he had such a good year last year until he injured his thumb, which was kind of a freak injury, really. I mean, he doesn't have really a whole lot of injury history. I think that this is a real value for a lot of fantasy teams that are obviously waiting on quarterbacks.
I mean, yeah, this is just more proof to the pudding that you could wait on a quarterback. Like I said, Dalton has outscored Big Ben 3 out of the last 4 years. Big Ben is currently averaging the 6th quarterback off the board. Andy Dalton is averaging the 18th quarterback off the board.
Yeah, I'll take that.
Think about this. Where would you expect A.J. Green to get taken in the draft? Maybe early to mid-second? Would you say that's fair?
I've been seeing him go a lot of times in the first round. I've even seen him go as high as top 5.
Well, that's pretty crazy. But nonetheless, imagine stacking your team with an A.J. Green in the first 2 rounds, and then you wait till like the 8th round because, like Samuel said, you could probably get him in the 8th round or maybe even later, which is pretty much a steal. You get A.J. Green early, and then you wait, and then get Andy Dalton, and now you've stacked your team. You've got Andy Dalton throwing the ball to A.J. Green, and now when A.J. Green gets a touchdown, you double your points.
Well, one really big positive about A.J. Green, and I think this is why people are taking him a little bit early, is 3 out of the last 4 years he's had double-digit touchdowns. But
he's big.
On that same token, he had 9 games last year where he had under 70 yards, only had 4 100-yard games, and he had did most of his damage from week 12 on. He had 6 touchdowns from week 12 on, and he had only 4 from weeks 1 through 11.
So he sucked in the beginning.
Yeah, well, my thing is, it seems like there's a lot of games where he kind of, I wouldn't say completely busted, but I mean, he seems like I said this before, he's kind of like an elite boomer bust player in my opinion. And I really don't think he is worthy of a first-round pick. I mean, I wouldn't mind him like at the back of the first or early second, but I wouldn't go like. It's definitely not a guy I'm reaching for.
Well, Sanu's gone and Marvin Jones is gone, so who's he got to compete with targets besides Tyler Eifert?
Well, I mean, I think that he's going to get peppered with targets this year. But, I mean, have you noticed in the past he tended to struggle with double coverage a little bit and get frustrated? And I think that he's going to be getting double-teamed a lot this year. What's your take on this, Kimo?
Yeah, actually, I read another article today, and I don't remember the exact number, but I believe it was, in 8 games last season, he averaged under, I believe it was 50 yards, and I'm like, if he's a guy that's going to, like, when he blows up, and he gets, like, 2 touchdowns and 100-something yards, but then he's a guy that I can't expect consistency from, one week he's going to get me a big goose egg, and the next week he's going to get me, 60 points, I need consistency in my lineup. So I think that's what's shying a lot of people away, and I absolutely agree. I would rather have a guy like Allen Robinson.
I'm even go as far. Yeah, I was gonna say I'm even gonna go as far as to say I would like Keenan Allen more than I like AJ Green, especially because sit down we're all about PPR or die. I think that Keenan Allen's gonna outscore AJ Green in PPR leagues.
Oh, I believe so too.
I mean, for a guy that's going to be most people's number one receiver, there's a lot of validity there,
You guys aren't saying he's a bust. You're saying he's overvalued.
I think he's a little bit overvalued, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and here, I actually just looked up the article. Okay, so it was 7 games last season where he only scored 8 fantasy points or less. So that to me is a huge, you know what, can I trust him, week to week? Or I just need to string him against good matchups. Obviously, it's AJ Green. You're going to play him either way. But I'm just saying, it's a reason that I would take guys guys that are going around the same time frame, like Des Bryant's going around there, Keenan Allen's going around there, and another guy on there too. Yeah, exactly. There's just too many good receivers going around where he's going that I wouldn't really want him on my fantasy team.
I guess it's all about everyone's own flavor. Some people tend to like AJ Green a lot more, and then there's other people like us that are probably not as high on him, But it seems like every year, last couple of seasons, this has been the main question about this team. Who are you taking? Are you taking Giovanni Bernard or are you taking Jeremy Hill? Giovanni Bernard is going at the beginning of the 6th round. Hill's going at the back end of the 6th round. So who do you got?
I like Gio way more than I like Jeremy Hill. I mean, Jeremy Hill's going way too early for me, and Bernard is going right in that sweet spot, where I like to get pick up my one running back early and then get one a little later. He's right where I want one.
I was telling people earlier yesterday that in most league formats, I really wouldn't mind starting my draft off with 4 receivers. And it's because you can get running backs like this in rounds 5 through 7,
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not a bad strategy. We've already discussed in volume, how, there's some points that I disagree with you, but I can't disagree with the fact that, if you draft 3 receivers and go for a running back later, I can't argue with that logic. It makes a lot of sense. You're gonna be a top heavy team definitely, but I think that those late round values are there, and I think that Gio Bernard's one of them.
And here's some interesting notes that go against Jeremy Hill. Jeremy Hill had 11 touchdowns last year, so on paper that looks pretty good, but he had 9 of those touchdowns in 4 games. He had 8 games under 50 yards. Had 0 100-yard games, and he had 6 games without a catch and only had 15 catches on the season.
Yeah, I owned him last year, and he infuriated me.
I traded Des Bryant for him, thinking, he'll be good for the second half of the season, and he just never came around. So Giovanni Bernard, on the other hand, for a guy that was splitting carries with Hill, he still had 7 games with at least 10 carries. He's had over 40 catches in all 3 of his seasons. And he's been an RB2 for all 3 seasons and averaged about 1,100 total yards. The only knock on him is last year he only had 2 touchdowns.
Bernard's a better receiver out of the backfield than Jeremy Hill.
By far.
It just depends what you're looking for. Neither one of these guys are on my radar, but, I would probably start Bernard as a flex.
He's my flexy.
I'd rather have Bernard as a flex than Jeremy Hill.
Probably one of the more consistent fantasy producers, and he's probably one of the more safer picks at a risky position. And he's probably going to be an RB2 again this year, although with that being said, if I could have him as my 3rd running back, then that's fine. But I really don't like targeting a whole lot of running backs towards the beginning of the draft. So that, I think both you guys said, it's really not a guy I'm particularly targeting, but it's definitely a guy that's there if you need a running back. That's a safe option.
Neither one of them are just going to get the amount of opportunities they need to put up big numbers. Like, neither one of them are going to put up big numbers, I don't think.
Jeremy Hill, though, is kind of a guy. He's a lot of people think he could be a bounce-back candidate, and he's kind of a target for those guys that are going 0 RBs towards the beginning of the draft. So I guess I can get on board with that, but like both of you guys already said, he's really not a running back that I'm particularly targeting.
Let's say somebody wants to go receiver in a PPR league, right?
Yeah.
After that, you can still pick up Latavius Murray, Jonathan Stewart, C.J. Anderson. There's still options there. Carlos Hyde could still be there. I mean, I'm not having any of those guys than the Bengals running backs that you just named. I mean, I'm not saying they're bad players. They're talented players. I just don't think they're going to get enough opportunities to put up, viable fantasy numbers. Excuse me.
I think in a PPR setting, the Giovanni Bernard's a little bit, I guess you could say, underrated. But in a standard setting, there's not a chance in hell I'm taking Gio. I actually think that Jeremy Hill has more value in a standard league compared to Giovanni Bernard.
He's a better runner between tackles.
Yeah, when he's not fucking zigzagging like he was last year. He needs to get back to just going north and south, lowering his shoulder, and just going through the holes.
Agreed.
Go ahead, Tino.
No, I just said I agreed. Definitely agreed.
I just don't think Cincinnati understands their identity as an offensive football team. I don't think they know what they want to do. Like, they're such a complete team. You look at them both sides of the ball. I feel like their biggest weakness as a team is Andy Dalton. And he's not a bad quarterback by any means. He's definitely an above-average quarterback. I feel like he's the weakest link on their team, which is saying something. I just don't feel like they know what they want to do on the offensive side of the football.
Well, I think they're in a transitional stage. I mean, Hugh Jackson moved on, and really, like you said, their offensive identity could be changing. I mean, although I do think that they will try to rely on the run a little bit more this year on the simple fact that they let all their receivers go. And with that being said, is there another receiver outside of A.J. Green that could be fantasy relevant on this football team? I mean, you got Brandon LaFell. That's scary. They went out and drafted Boyd, pegged to play into the slot. Do you think that either of those guys?
I can see Boyd getting a lot of work out of that slot, like you just said. I pretty much heard. I think that a beat writer was like, there's about an 80% chance that Boyd will be the primary slot target. So I could see, some fantasy value there in some, PPR leagues or, whatever. But, other than that, Brandon LaFell scares me. I think really I'll just leave it at that. That's all my 2 cents on it.
All right. So,
what do you think about Tyler Eifert, Johnny?
I was just about to bring him up. Tyler Eifert, he might have a chance of missing a couple of games to start the season. But I'm going to start, before we get into Tyler Eifert, I'm just going to start naming off a ton of tight ends real fast. Delaney Walker, Gary Barnidge, Greg Olson, Gronk, Jordan Reed, Zach Ertz, Benjamin Watson, Old Man Witten, Travis Kelce, Antonio Gates, Richard Rodgers, Kobe Fleener, Jacob Tamme, Bartelius Bennett, Julius Thomas, Charles Clay, Jared Cook. What do all those tight ends have in common with each other?
I don't know.
All those tight ends had more targets than Tyler Eifert last year, despite how high Tyler Eifert finished.
Wow. That's a good stat, Johnny.
I mean,
yeah, that is
even
interesting.
Some of these tight ends that had more targets than him, Jared Cook, Jacob Tamme.
I hate Jared Cook. Jared Cook has 11 touchdowns in 7 seasons. That's garbage.
And
that's not even 2 touchdowns a season.
What I'm saying is maybe Tyler Eifert's season that he had last year is a little bit unsustainable, don't you think?
I don't know.
Agree.
I think he did lead the tight ends in touchdowns, but he only had like 52 catches and he had like 12, 13 touchdowns. So I mean, that's a lot of his fantasy points were coming from touchdowns, and you always try to look for regression when something like that happens.
I mean, that's a lot of freaking touchdowns for a tight end.
was looking like a pretty good red zone target last year. He will be. He looks like he'll probably miss a couple of games. Is the backup Tyler Croft on anybody's radar at this point?
I mean, maybe, but it is a decently high volume passing offense, but I really don't see a whole lot of upside there. If anything, the only time he'll even have value is when Tyler Eifert's down, which he's actually proven that he stayed healthy over most of the course of last year until like late last year. So I really don't see too much upside with that.
I mean, he only played in one game the year before that.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely true. I just my whole strategy on tight ends this year is all the tight ends that are going early. Kronk's going to be without Brady. I think that Delaney Walker is due for some regression. Jordan Reed's injury prone. I think this year in most leagues I'm looking at maybe avoiding a tight end until later.
I take a tight end until the 11th round in my draft.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also on board with that. I'm a guy that especially if I don't get those like top three options, I'm probably just gonna wait as late as possible to get my tight end. I've been targeting like guys like Zach Miller, Eric Ebron, like players like that towards the back of the draft.
Yeah, I picked Eric Ebron. People think it's stupid, but he's fast. He can make some long plays. Yeah,
he has to hold on to the damn ball. All right, so we're gonna move on to I think probably one of the more intriguing teams on this division, the Baltimore Ravens. They have a lot of options, and no one's really sure like where they fit in this mold. Who are some guys that you guys are targeting from the Baltimore Ravens?
None. Finito. Zero.
Because I mean, they have a lot of. They actually have a lot of playmakers. It's just who's going to make the plays.
Maybe Justin Tucker. That's it.
Your league actually uses kickers.
That's literally it.
But, I mean, well, I guess we'll start off at the running back position. It still looks like Justin Forsett's holding on to that starting job, but they also got three other guys there that could potentially steal some workload. You got Terrence West, who's looking really good so far at the beginning of the season. You got they picked up a rookie, Kenneth Dixon, who's looking pretty good. And they also have, what's his fucking face, Buck again, Allen.
Oh, yeah, good old Buck Allen. Yeah, I'm not hearing too good things about Allen. I think that he lost a couple fumbles earlier in the preseason, and it's not looking too good at his camp. But I have heard great things about West, and I've heard good things, up-and-coming things about Dixon. I still think this is Forsett's backfield to lose, though. He's another late-round running back that I think is a nice addition to a lot of teams that go with a bunch of receivers early. I think that he's a nice late-round steal at running back if he can sustain his position all year. Obviously, you're drafting with a little bit of risk, but I like Justin Forsett. Jim Harbaugh already said that he looks like he did in 2014 when he had his breakout campaign. So if his coach thinks so, I think so.
And he got off to a bit of a slow start last year, but if you look at where he was at when he got injured, he was correct me if I'm wrong, but he was right around that RB1 high upside RB2 territory.
He was definitely flirting with it for sure. I think that if he stays healthy and holds his position all year, I think that he will have a nice season. I think that he'll. I mean, I'm not saying that he's going to do what he did in 2014, but I'm saying that he could easily go over 1,000. And I'm thinking that it's a possibility. I mean, this is a shitty Ravens team, but I think it's a possibility that he could maybe hit about 8 touchdowns.
Do you think that maybe his reception total might tank a little bit with obviously Dixon's on that team now? And, yeah, he's always been a guy that could catch the ball, but he was never really overly efficient when he's catching the ball. Like I don't have it up right now, but I know his yards per reception isn't ideal. So
I think that it might stay about where it was in 2014. I think that it's going to be a nice option for Joe Flacco. If he can't find anything downfield, just a quick dump it to Forsett and see what happens. Yeah, you're right. He wasn't terribly efficient, but he was efficient enough. He was definitely getting the volume, which counts. So I think that
Mark Trestman has an offense where they do throw a lot of passes to the running back. I just think that that I think Dixon's going to steal a lot of that thunder.
Yeah, I definitely think that does hurt him a little bit because I do think that obviously one of those two guys, either West or Dixon, they've both been really getting rave reviews about their catching passes out of the backfield. But the other thing is, too, I'm sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied here. But basically what I'm saying is I think that Forset's only going to get that first and second down work and then expect one of those other two guys to get that third down work.
All right. Now,
where would you coach Justin Forsett at, K-Mill?
Well, I've been seeing him go pretty late in drafts. I think I've seen him go as late as like the 10th round. So I think that you're getting pretty good value for him. I think even if you're drafting with some risk, if he does, if he's even like a little bit like he was in 2014, I think you're still getting return on that 10th round pick.
I mean, right now, Fantasy Football Calculator has him towards like the beginning of the 8th round. I mean, do you think that's a good spot for him?
I think that's fair. I think I would be more comfortable taking him in the 9th or the 10th because, like I said, I've seen him fall that far because people just, I guess, aren't sold on him. They're getting scared of the news that out of camp. But I really think that if he's sitting there in the 9th round and you've drafted a lot of receivers early and you need a running back, I think that he's a perfect candidate to, a shot on a dartboard. Let's see if it works.
Right, and we'll move on to, we spent a lot of time on Justin Forsett. We're going to move on to the wide receivers they have over there. There's another position where they have a lot of options over there. They got Kamar Aiken, they got Steve Smith trying to come back from the injury. They have Rashard Perriman, who's a walking injury. They went and signed Mike Wallace. They also got another guy, Chris Moore, on that team that could potentially push people for some playing time. What's your favorite receiver out of that bunch?
Oh, well, I'll say, I'm actually kind of sad that the word got out on Kamar Aiken because before that he was going at a throwaway price, and he could potentially be that top target on that Baltimore team. So I was like all over that on a lot of mock drafts. Now he's actually going way earlier. So I kind of that, but I also have another guy that I want to bring up too, and that's Mike Wallace. Out of camp, he's getting rave reviews.
He's playing two receiver sets right now.
Yeah, and Joe Flacco said he hasn't seen him drop a pass yet. Came to camp out of shape, but Joe Flacco said that he, like right now, he looks like his favorite target. So Mike Wallace might be coming back from the dead this year.
Well, ever since Mike Wallace left Pittsburgh, he never really had a quarterback that could consistently get him the ball deep. And obviously Joe Flacco has one of the stronger arms in the NFL, so I think that's actually a pretty good match for them. With that being said, I think that I'm on board with you. Kamar Aiken is my receiver that I'm targeting on a lot of my leagues. I have a lot of shares of him, and his ADP is starting to creep up a little bit. It's at the back of the 9th. You got Steve Smith at the back of the 10th, but I'm not really expecting a whole lot out of Steve Smith, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to come back. He had a double rupture in his Achilles, which makes it even harder for him to come back. I think that
especially at his age.
Yeah, I think that the most that you can expect out of Steve Smith Sr. is that, you get him as a late-round flyer, and then maybe he pans out, maybe he doesn't. You could play him in the flex. There's a lot of options there. But like I said, you're drafting with that risk, so I'm not particularly targeting him. But if he's there really late, and I'm just like, oh, fuck, I don't like any of these other guys, I might take Steve Smith, but, who knows.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not counting Steve Smith out of it, but he's definitely, I don't think I'll have any shares of him on any of my teams. There's just other receivers out there that have more of an upside than him, so.
Absolutely.
Now, another position where it tends to look like a mess is their tight end position. It seems like they have, 1,400 tight ends on this team.
Oh, yeah.
Is anyone, that's a question for both of you, is there any tight ends on this team that you are targeting at all?
Absolutely not. I don't even want to touch it. Look, if I'm going to list off some of the names that I know off the top of my head, Max Williams, Crockett Gilmore.
Signed Ben Watson.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, Ben Watson. And then
they got Darren Waller over there. I think Dennis Pitt is still on that team. That was the one I was looking for. Dennis Pitt is still on that team, and he can never stay healthy. I think that if there's anybody, I think that the only one I've heard that's even doing anything is Ben Watson. I've heard that he's going to be the starter this year, or he's projected to be. But other than that, it's just man Watson.
Old man Watson. But we also have to remember he's kind of over the hill. So if you go after Watson, don't be surprised if he doesn't, return you some value. But
none of these tight ends are a guy or is a tight end that I want to roll with as my tight end one. So let's just move on to the Cleveland Browns. The RG3 hasn't been really looking that bad in preseason. Him and Terrell Pryor have been hooking up for a couple of nice grabs. Do you think that maybe that RG3 it could be like a late round flyer at quarterback this year?
I don't see why not. He's shown good enough. I wouldn't draft him as my number one quarterback on my team. Let's be clear about that. I would definitely draft him as number 2. Maybe he pans out. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he resurrects his career.
Especially if you're in a dual quarterback league or a super flex league. I mean, doesn't he look pretty good as your third quarterback?
Oh yeah, I don't see why not. Like I said, I think that Terrell Pryor is actually looking like a nice little sleeper in a lot of drafts. He's catching on a little bit. I've seen him creeping up on that waiver wire lately, but I think that he could be a nice little addition. Hugh Jackson said great things about him. RG3 said great things about him. I don't know how much I trust that. And then also Corey Coleman opposite to him. I think that neither one of them is going to get too much.
Over there.
Yeah, I don't think that there's I don't think it's a bad situation, but I think that RG3 could resurrect his career there.
All right. Rico Suave, you've been quiet over there. What's your take on RG3? Okay, I think we might have lost him.
Well, all right.
All right, well, my take on RG3, like I already said it, I think that he's a nice late-round flyer, especially if you're in a dual quarterback league. But we'll go over to the running back situation. Do you think that maybe Isaiah Crowell is being a little bit underlooked? Because, I mean, he could potentially lead the team in carries.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But the thing is, though, is that I'm hearing more and more that him and Duke Johnson are going to be in a timeshare, and I don't like that at all. I don't see – I see it – if I'm comfortable taking him, it would have to be really, really, really late for running back depth.
I think they are going to be in some kind of timeshare, but I think that from a carry standpoint, I do think that Isaiah Crowell is probably going to out-carry him a little bit, and he's going in the mid-10th round. You could potentially be getting a starting running back in the 10th round.
That is true, yeah. It's also like I was saying earlier. If you do end up going wide receiver heavy in those early rounds, and you're looking for a nice addition at running back, or possibly it could pan out, could not pan out. I think that why not Isaiah Crowell? I think that could definitely work.
Obviously, Duke Johnson is a guy that's really appealing in PPR settings. Potentially could be like a guy kind of like a Deion Lewis of that offense, maybe,
Absolutely, he's a guy that I'm definitely looking at in the PPR setting as a late round running back.
Now, they got the bad boy Josh Gordon back. They drafted Corey Coleman. Which of these receivers do you think is going to have a better season? Josh Gordon in 12 games, Corey Coleman in 16 games. Who do you think is going to have the better season overall?
You know what? I really, really want to say Josh Gordon here, but I just, he's proven that you can't trust him as far as not so much his performance on the field. And then when he came back from his the last time he was on the field, he showed a lot of rust. Hopefully he's working that rust out right now. But you know what? My money's on Corey Coleman. I think I want to say Josh Gordon, but he has shown that he just can't stay on the field because of suspension issues.
I don't want to keep agreeing with you, but I think that when it's all said and done, I think Corey Coleman is going to be the best out of the rookie receiver crop this year.
Yeah, it is a very bold prediction, but you know what? Maybe not all the rookies, but I do agree with you that I do love his upside.
And with that being said, Josh Gordon is a guy that if he does return to form, he could potentially be a guy that could help you win your championship.
Oh yeah, especially if for me, like I know we already talked about this in depth, so I won't go too much into it. But where we talked about we were comfortable drafting him, And if he's still there, and I'm drafting like top of the eighth as the middle of the eighth, and he falls to me, I mean, I'd be comfortable setting an 8th round pick on him. You know, maybe he does, maybe he doesn't pan out. I'm comfortable with that.
Right now, it looks like his ADP is in the beginning of the 6th round. Although I just did a 14-team draft and I got him in the 7th. I mean, if I can get Josh Gordon as like my 4th receiver, I've said this before. Like, I'm pretty happy about him being my 4th receiver. But like not a guy that I have to really rely on from week to week because there's always that chance that Josh Gordon popped out a drug test. Woo!
Yeah.
That's why I kind of like him as my 4th receiver though.
Yeah, just saying, as I did my draft last night, I was able to get him in the 8th round, and I've actually, on a couple of my mock drafts, been able to, he's still there in the 8th round, so that's why I'm saying I don't think I'd be comfortable with the 7th rounder. Maybe I would, maybe I won't. I'm hesitant, but if he's there in the 8th, I'm definitely taking him.
All right. A guy that's been kind of quiet this offseason, no one really seems to be talking about him as much, is Gary Barnidge, who is not young by any stretch of the imagination. I believe he's in his 30s. But
he's 32, I believe.
Yeah, do you think that people are kind of shying away because maybe he was a one-hit wonder and he's kind of older? Do you think that's why people are probably shying away from him?
Well, there's some red flags there. RG3, what is he going to be this year? And then I think that Gary Barnidge is coming off of a decently serious injury. He had an abdominal injury, if I'm not mistaken. And but I really like Gary Barnidge where he's going in a lot of drafts. I could see myself drafting him in some of my leagues because I think just the other day I drafted him in like 3 mock drafts because of where he was going. And like we were saying, waiting on a tight end is very beneficial, I think. So I where he's been going is where I feel comfortable drafting a tight end. So
late 8th, early 9th is where he's going. Like, I don't really think that's a terrible spot for him. Although, like you said, I'd have to look into it, but I'm not sure RG3 is a guy that really throws to the tight end a whole lot. So it'd be kind of interesting to see like what kind of volume Gary Barnidge will see this year.
Definitely. That's actually a really good point. I actually hadn't given that much thought, but you bring up a very good point. That you're absolutely right. RG3 isn't really known for throwing to his tight ends a whole lot. His tight ends in Washington were very underutilized. So, yeah, that's a great point.
And say if RG3 wasn't to hold that starting job, and I know they've been shopping McCown around, but maybe if McCown was to get in there, I would probably like Gary Barnidge a lot more because we've seen it last year. Like McCown was targeting Barnidge quite a bit.
Yeah, they showed a nice connection last year, so I think I would definitely be it would be more acceptable to me. But obviously, they've already named RG3 the starting. So where Barnidge is going isn't necessarily bad for me. So, I think that I'll still continue to take him. I think that he'll because he's already, I think just the other day, he caught a touchdown pass from RG3 in a preseason game. In fact, I think I watched it at the gym. It was during the Minnesota game, and it was a nice touchdown, too. He looks like a real matchup nightmare for a lot of those defensive backfields. So, I don't know. I'm just saying, why not?
All right. So, I think that'll do it for the AFC North. Let's go over to the AFC South. Now, this is going to be a pretty competitive division. Who do you have winning the AFC South? You got the Jaguars, you got the Colts, you got the Texans, you got the Titans over there. Who do you see taking this division?
My money's on the Colts. This is my least favorite division in the entire NFL. And I think the Colts do. I think that Andrew Luck has a nice bounce-back season. I think that T.Y. Hilton and Dante Moncrief have career years. Yeah, you heard me, career years. And I think that Frank Gore has a decent enough season. So I think it's Indy. What do you think, Johnny?
Well, you think that the Colts offense is going to return to form, then I could definitely get on board with them winning the division. But my money is actually on Houston. Not that I think that Brock is going to be really good, but I think that their defense is going to be really good, and I think they're going to just try to rely on their defense and run the ball with Miller, and I think they'll just try to do that all the way to a AFC South championship.
That's a very good point. They made a lot of acquisitions this free agency cycle, my favorite of which is Lamar Miller. I absolutely love that addition. I think that he's going to do great in that offense and finally utilize him like in Miami. if you don't mind, you want to start with the Colts, or do you want to start with the Texans?
Yeah, we'll start with the Colts, because I actually had a pretty interesting conversation with somebody last night on the Colts. Could you imagine if Lamar Miller were to go to the Indianapolis Colts instead of Houston Texans? Because then you'd have Luck, you'd have Miller, you'd have Gore, you'd have Hilton, you would have Moncrief, Dorsett. Like that would probably make that a team that could potentially make some noise in the playoffs, I think. But it was just not to be. Andrew Luck, I do think that he's going to bounce back next year or this year, because, I mean, he can't be as bad as what he was last year. Last year kind of totally took everyone by surprise, and this year his value is a lot better than what it was last year. Like you ain't got to fucking take him in, like, the second round this year. You can go ahead and get him, like, the fifth round, you know?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Interesting thing, definitely. If I actually really hate the Colts for not going after a better running back, in free agency. They stuck with old man Gore, and I thought they were going to go after Lamar Miller, or at the very least go after like Arian Foster. I think Arian Foster would have been a pretty good fit for that team too. Yeah, definitely. But while we're on the subject of Frank Gore, I don't think he's going to make a whole lot of noise this year. I think he'll be good enough. I think that he's got that touchdown upside because he's obviously the primary red zone back. He's really doesn't have a challenger. I really don't think like his yards per carry is going to really improve a whole lot from last year. I know they made some improvements to the offensive line, but I really don't see his yards per carry going up too much higher from where it was last year. But you got to think last year he had 2 fumbles at the 1-yard line, something that Frank Gore never does. So I think that maybe his touchdown total could come up a little bit, especially if that whole entire offense as a whole is rejuvenated, Yeah, absolutely. I don't see this. And I think the biggest thing to remember is, too, he has no competition for that backfield. So you know that if you're drafting Frank Gore, as long as he stays healthy, he is the primary beneficiary of that nice Colts offense. But,
one pretty big negative on Frank Gore is that he was a guy you can get in, like, the 9th round, but it seems like his ADP has been shooting up big time lately, all the way up into the 7th round.
Yeah, definitely. I don't so much like where he's going right now. There's a lot of guys where he's going that I like a little bit more than him. So I don't really see myself drafting a guy like Frank Gore, but I don't think that he's necessarily a bad choice at that area.
I mean, he's getting up there in age. They did draft Josh Ferguson. Do you see like maybe Josh Ferguson being a sneaky play on that team?
Not really. I think that at the very most, I think that I don't know why you really want to handcuff a guy like, Frank Gore, but I guess as a handcuffed Frank Gore, maybe a third down back.
You see, that's why I really thought, like, Arian Foster would fit into that team pretty well, because Arian Foster could have been that third down back, and they could have used Frank Gore on, like, first and second down, But, like I said, it wasn't to be. They got some nice receiving options on this team, though. I think that's really where their strength relies, is the passing game. So I don't really think they really valued the running back position too much.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a mistake too, because if you have a team that's really good in the passing game, you have to respect the pass. And now I guess I'm not saying that they're not respecting Frank Gore, but I'm saying that if they had like a back like Lamar Miller, they don't know what's going to happen because they got a good back and they have a great passing game. But my favorite beneficiary of Andrew Luck's return to form this year, or predicted at least, is T.Y. Hilton. He's consistently been called the best player at OTAs. He was the best player at training camp. Andrew Luck said great things about him. All his coaches have said that he looks like he's in for a career year, same with beat writers. Everything I'm hearing is great about T.Y. Hilton. And I like where he's going. He's one of those receivers that I like that's going in the 2nd or the 3rd round. And I think that he's
going to the beginning of the 3rd, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, late 2nd, early 3rd. He's a guy that I'm targeting in a lot of my leagues. I already have him. I have him in one league, and in a lot of mock drafts I've been taking him right around that 3rd round. I love where he's sitting right now, and I think that he could be really, really sneaky for a top 10 receiver this year.
I mean, you got T.Y. Hilton at the beginning of the 3rd. You have Deontay Moncrief at the back of the 4th. Who do you think's the better value on this team?
I mean, from my predictions of what's going to happen with T.Y. Hilton this year, I think that T.Y. Hilton's the way better. I think that Moncrief's still a year off. I think that Moncrief is a nice acquisition because of that touchdown upside. He showed that he had some real nice red zone rapport with Luck last year. But I still think that this is T.Y. Hilton's receiving core.
At one point this preseason, I thought that Moncrief was the better value up until, his ADP starting to creep into the fourth round. And at that point, why don't I just take the guy I think is going to have the better season in T.Y. Hilton,
Exactly. That's why I'm not really looking so much at Moncrief in a lot of my things, because I think that there's a nice little gap there.
I think the hype killed his value, to be honest.
Yeah, I think so too. But like I said, I think there's a gap there still. I think that T.Y. Hilton, in my eyes, is the better receiver, and I think that this could be his best season to date.
We already know you're really not a big Dwayne Allen fan. I think that he's actually a decent little late flyer for tight end, but we'll just leave it at that for right now and move on to a team we haven't really mentioned yet, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, this is the team I thought you were going to say is going to win the division, but it looks like you went with the Colts. They got a lot of good things going for them on the offensive side of the ball, though.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that the biggest I think we should just start talking about the quarterbacks. That's where I'm going to start. Blake Bortles, though erratic, had put up a really nice season last year. I think that continues this year. I'm not so much sold on where he's going in draft. He's not a guy I'm particularly targeting from where he's going. But and plus another thing to think about too is his completion percentage needs work. That's a big red flag for me on Blake Bortles. But other than that, I like everything I see. And the fact that this Jacksonville team actually was in the bottom of the league in average first quarter points. So they're a team that was consistently playing from behind last year. I think that's going to improve this year. They're going to get more wins. But
I could be wrong about this, but I think Blake Bortles set a record for most touchdowns while playing from behind last year.
I think he did too.
I'm talking about percentage-wise.
Yeah, they're a big garbage time team. I mean, at least Blake Bortles is a good garbage time quarterback. And I don't know, I'm not particularly sold on him quite yet. Don't get me wrong, I think that the upside is definitely there. I think that he'll be a decent quarterback for years to come, but I'm not sold with unless if I need to see him complete more passes or a higher percentage of passes this year.
He's currently the 10th quarterback off the board. I'm going to start naming off a bunch of quarterbacks that he's going around, and I want you to tell me who you'd take.
Okay.
All right, you got Eli Manning or Blake Bortles?
Eli Manning.
Blake Bortles or Phillip Rivers?
Phillip Rivers.
Blake Bortles or Derek Carr?
Derek Carr.
And even a little bit later back, you got either Blake Bortles or Kirk Cousins.
That's more of a toss-up for me because I think that the upside with Cousins is there, not getting too off topic. I think the upside with Cousins is there, but he also has a lot of red flags too. So, I think that's kind of negligible.
So that's your cutoff point is so you think that Blake Bortles should probably be more like towards the 12th quarterback off the board as opposed to being the 10th? Yeah,
I wouldn't necessarily say that Derek Carr is better, but I think he's going later than him, so that's why Derek Carr appeals to me.
I mean, all those quarterbacks I tend to like a little bit more than Blake as well, especially Derek Carr. I like Derek Carr more than Rivers and Bortles, to be honest. But that's a show we already covered. The running back situation is a situation that doesn't really intrigue a whole lot of people, but it intrigues me. Fuck, man. We got Chris Ivory and Yeldon over there. I think that it could be some kind of thunder and lightning situation, don't you think?
I think it's intriguing with the fact that I don't know what to make of it. I don't know if who's the primary back in that thing. I think that it is a nice thunder and lightning thing, but I think for fantasy owners it's like, well, fuck, which one do I want? You can't make heads or tails of it. It looks like more of a timeshare than anything, and that's what shies me away from it.
I absolutely love Chris Ivory's value at where his ADP is at right now. He's going at the back of the 7th, early 8th. I think, if I had to choose a running back out of those two, it'd probably be Chris Ivory, but I also like Yeldon too. I think Yeldon actually got a decent amount of receptions in that offense. But I think when it all comes down to it, Chris Ivory is going to be the guy that's going to get more touchdowns. I think he's going to get more opportunities in the red zone this year. I think that's the whole reason why he was brought onto that team. I mean, I really like Chris Ivory, to be honest.
That's a good point with the red zone options. I think that the red zone is a nice suited position for him. I think that he could go double touchdowns this year.
And Yeldon obviously wasn't very successful in the red zone, so that's why I think that it's going to be more of Chris Ivory is going to be the red zone option. No,
yeah, well, I mean, another thing too is Yeldon needs to bulk up. He's undersized.
Yeah, I'll agree with that too. They got some receivers over there. Allen Robinson, you got Allen Hearns, the Allen squared. I think Allen Hearns is going to be the guy that's going to be regressing more than Allen Robinson.
I agree too. I think that Allen Hearns is. I'm not really targeting him because I think he's going a little too high for me.
I mean, Allen Robinson, obviously, he's going to have a little bit of regression as well, but I mean, it's kind of hard to duplicate a 14-touchdown season. So, I mean, I think obviously that's going to come down, but I don't see any reason why he can't either repeat his yardage total or come close to it.
I don't see why not either. I think the only regression we're going to see from Robinson is touchdowns.
I mean, I could still see him being like an 85 to 90 catch guy for like 1,300 yards and like 11 or 12 touchdowns.
I don't think that's out of the question at all. Definitely not.
I don't think I'm too far off base on that.
Yeah, I hate to keep agreeing with you, but you're absolutely right. I think that's definitely not out of the realm of possibility with Allen Robinson.
I mean, Allen Hearns is going into the 6th round, but I think what was so awesome about Allen Hearns last year is you didn't even have to draft him. He was kind of like a waiver wire gem, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I'm shying away from him, too. I mean, he's just not a guy that appeals to me where he's going in the 6th round.
Another receiving option that they have on this team that we haven't even brought up yet is Julius Thomas. Now, I think this is a guy that could also cut into a little bit of the red zone work. He started showing it a little bit down the stretch last year.
Yeah, I agree. If he can stay healthy, which we all know has been a problem for him, I think that if he stays healthy, I think that he's going to be a nice red zone target. I think he's going to actually help Blake Bortles' touchdown total go up because last year he was working without Julius Thomas for a good portion of the year.
You know, Gary, the thing, I was about to bring up Gary Barnes again, but what I think about Julius Thomas, though, is, like, he's going in the 8th round, but at that point, like, I've already made the decision that I'm probably just going to, keep waiting on the tight end. He's probably not a guy that's going to land on a lot of my teams, especially since I'm a little bit worried about his touchdown total. Because what if he doesn't cut into the red zone targets,
Yeah, then he's pretty much just wasted a pick. So yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, if you've already told yourself I'm waiting on the tight end. He's just going a little too early for me too.
I mean, I really don't have a problem where he's going. It's just where he's going is not where I'm targeting a tight end really. So.
Yeah, I agree. I can agree with that.
All right, we'll go over to the team that I think is going to win the division, the Houston Texans. The Houston Sex-Hens. They're looking kind of sexy to me. I mean, I'm not really because of Brock, but I do like DeAndre Hopkins. I do like Lamar Miller. I think that there could actually be a second option on that team that could be a receiving option on that team as well. Who that's going to be, I'm not quite sure yet, but I do kind of like a lot of these options on this team. Well, I guess
yeah.
Really like two options. I like two options on this team.
Yeah. I mean, there's not. Well, let's just let's cut into the real question marks. We already know what kind of Lamar Miller stands for. He's sneaking into the first round of a lot of drafts. Obviously,
you started to sneak into that first round, huh?
Yeah, definitely. I've seen him go in first round. Actually, I think I saw somebody reach for him with the 5th overall in one draft.
Lamar Miller is definitely a guy I'm pretty high on. I would be one of those guys that would take him in the first round if I was picking at the back, towards the back, Although that is also an area where I do like to go receiver, but I think Lamar Miller has a chance to be the number 1 overall running back this year.
I don't think that's out of the question at all. I think there's one running back going around that same time period that I like more, and that's David Johnson, obviously. But that being said, I actually kind of like Todd Gurley a little bit more than him, too. But other than that, I definitely don't see that's too far-fetched for him to lead the league this year. I think that's definitely in the realm of possibility. I think that's all I got to say about Lamar Miller. I think we know what he's definitely capable of. Whether he does it is entirely up to him, though.
I mean, are you a little bit worried about there not being like a consistent second option at receiving for this team? Because obviously you got DeAndre Hopkins, but like, who else do you really have behind him? You got Will Fuller, who I think has some hands issues. You got Cecil Shorts, who tends to have an issue staying healthy. Like, we also got Jalen Strong, who could probably be a dark horse as number 2.
That's
like,
my dark horse this year. I think that Jalen Strong actually ends up being that number 2 option behind DeAndre Hopkins.
I'm a little bit worried that maybe teams can just focus on Hopkins, and he might kind of struggle from at stretches throughout the season.
Yeah, that is true. They might just double-team Hopkins, which is appealing to whoever's starting opposite to him, which right now on the depth chart is Jalen Strong. So if DeAndre Hopkins is getting double, triple teamed, that opens it up for Strong if Osweiler does well as quarterback.
But, Hopkins, I do think he's a pretty amazing receiver. He's obviously a guy that can get down the field, make the jump ball catches. Another knock on him, though, is he doesn't really get a whole lot of yards after the catch. So you'd like to see him improve on that a little bit. Now, I was having a conversation with somebody about Hopkins. Would you take Hopkins over David Johnson?
It's definitely the conversation. I think I will in a couple of weeks because I obviously don't want to take David Johnson if I'm playing in like 4 or 5 leagues. I don't want to take David Johnson in every single one of them. If he gets hurt, then it's fucked. So I think in a couple of leagues I will. I think that the difference between those two is negligible. I think that they're pretty much the same version of each other. Just one's a running back, one's a wide receiver. I still think that both of them are going to be excellent for your fantasy team. So, yeah, I definitely think that I'm going to take him right where David Johnson is going at some point, if David Johnson's name is still on the board.
I'll ask you the same question, but with a different name. Would you take Hopkins over Todd Gurley?
Yes. I don't know if I would, but I would at least consider the possibility.
I mean, you got to think there's a lot of drafts where Hopkins is probably going like 4th overall,
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry to touch you off here. I saw him go 3rd overall in a mock draft I did recently.
Yeah, I obviously think he will go a little bit higher in like dynasty formats, but that's for another day, another pod. But I think that I don't know. I think I probably would like Gurley over Hopkins a little bit, just because I wouldn't really put Hopkins in that tier of the top 3. I think he's just a tier below them,
Yeah, I think that if I'm sitting at number 4, which I am in one draft, I haven't drafted yet, but I think if I'm sitting at number 4, and if assuming that Antonio Brown, Julio Jones, and Odell Beckham go before my pick, I'm looking at. I think that I would be more leaning towards going with Todd Gurley than I am DeAndre Hopkins.
All right, so then it's settled. I think we're both kind of leaning towards Gurley over him. Let's go cover our last team in this division, the Tennessee Titans. I mean, they traded away Darrell Green-Beckham. What do you think that does for the other receivers on this team?
Well, I think it kind of cements them going forward with Kendall Wright, and I forget his name.
Rashard Matthews.
Yeah, Rashard Matthews. I'm sorry, I don't know why I keep forgetting his name. But, yeah, I think that pretty much cements them as the top 2 receivers to open the season. I think that Rashard Matthews is going to be the primary beneficiary, though. I think he's going to be a number 1 receiver, and he's going to be a nice weapon for Marcus Mariota.
Yeah, see, I'm really not thinking that Kendall Wright is going to open up in 2 receiver sets, so I think that I kind of like Tajay Sharp more than him, to be honest. I think Tajay Sharp's a nice late option at wide receiver. I picked him up with my last pick in a 14-teamer, so I do think that he has a potential to be at least the number 2 on that team.
I've been hearing good things about him. It's definitely not out of the question.
Yeah, I think Rashard Matthews, though, for a while, he was going undrafted, and now he's finally starting to surface in a lot of drafts. I mean,
Yeah.
where would you feel comfortable taking him?
Rashard Matthews, I think that he's worthy of, like, maybe a 10th rounder or somewhat earlier.
Yeah. He's right now he's like a 12th round pick. I can get on board with him taking him maybe a little bit early, like in the 11th round. Yeah, I think he's definitely a wide receiver. I think he's going to be a wide receiver one on his team, and you can get him that late. That's pretty good.
I agree.
All right. The running back situation, this is the position I think they're going to lean on the most this year. You got DeMarco Murray, you got Derrick Henry. Are you how do you see the situation playing out?
It's honestly, I can't make heads or tails of it, so I'm just not even going to try. I think that it's going to be kind of a mess, and you really don't know. I've heard good things about both of them catching passes out of the backfield, but I still think that DeMarco Murray opens up as the lead back, so to speak. And then Derrick Henry obviously stealing some work here and there.
Every year, coaches are going to say that they want to run the ball more than last year. But I think once you actually get into like a game flow and you start actually playing games and, you realize Tennessee's not really a good team and they're going to fall behind a little bit, I think that maybe that kind of hurts both of them a little bit, although it looked like DeMarco Murray was catching some passes in the training camp. But I think that game flow might hurt him a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I think the game flow will hurt them because there's a team that, regardless of what people think about them, they're still going to be playing from behind a lot.
I mean, you can get DeMarco Murray at the back of the 4th, and you got Henry in the back of the 8th. I mean, are you really actually targeting either one of these guys? I think I'd rather target Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I think that with where he's going, I think I'd rather have Derrick Henry as well.
I really haven't been a DeMarco fan since he left Dallas. Even last year I was saying, I don't know how I feel about him going to Philadelphia. And now Philadelphia doesn't want him. They traded him away to a team that I really don't think is going to be very good. I think that they're going to have to throw the ball a little bit more, which brings up our next guy that I want to bring up is Marcus Mariota. Where do you see him finishing this season? Do you think that he has any quarterback one appeal at all?
Sneaky. I think that there's a chance, but I'm not. I think he's still a year off at this point.
I mean, I think I tend to like a little bit more some running or quarterbacks that are going in front of him, like Matthew Stafford, Tyrod Taylor, hell, even Andy Dalton's there too.
Yeah, Jameis Winston's going around that area too, who I actually like a little more than Mariota.
Yeah, Jameis Winston's there as well. The one thing you got to like about Marcus Mariota is he does bring a lot of rushing abilities to the table, so I think that could boost his value up as well. But it seems like he had some issues staying healthy last year, so that's another knock on him.
Yeah, definitely.
And I know earlier in the show you said you're expecting some regression out of Delaney Walker, but that doesn't them losing Darrell Green Beckham doesn't change your opinion at all.
No, not particularly. I still think that I think that the biggest reason why he's going to lose work is DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry. I think that's going to be the main reason. They're going to steal some red zone work away from him because last year they were working with a terrible platoon of David Cobb, Bishop Sankey, etc. So I think that it's a huge upgrade for them at the running back position, and I think that's who's going to steal the red zone work from Delaney Walker. So I'm still not too high on Delaney Walker.
Delaney Walker led all tight ends in receptions last year. A lot of people, I think, kind of overlooked that a little bit. The Titans, nobody threw more passes to the tight ends last year than the Titans.
Yeah,
and it's not even close. It's not even close.
I'm still not high on Delaney Walker. I think that this running back thing, I think he has a decent enough season next year, but I don't think that he'll finish where he did last year.
I mean, can you see him still getting like 80 catches, 800 yards, and say like 6 or 7 touchdowns though?
Yeah, I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. I think that the touchdowns are the thing that I disagree with you on. I think that he might only get 5 touchdowns this year. I think that the yardage won't so much change. I think he'll get plenty of volume. I just think that he won't be. I think he's an option for them in the red zone, but I don't think that. I think he's going to lose a lot of work because of that.
I mean, the main knock I have on Delanie Walker is he's going in the 6th round. He's going in front of guys like Coby Fleener and Travis Kelce. I just like I said, if I don't get like Gronk, Reed, or Olsen, I'm probably just gonna wait. You know.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Although I don't think I'm as low on Walker as you are. I do think he's going to have a fine season. I think he's going to be a top 5 tight end. So I don't think I'm as low on him as you are. Do you have any last notes or any players that you think we might have missed or overlooked?
No, I think that we pretty much covered it. I think that I think that should be it. Yeah.
All right, I think we ran through them pretty good. Unfortunately, we lost Rico, but I think that losing him, I think we might have made our allotted time. So, with that being said, that will do it for today's show. Please, guys, give us some rates and reviews on iTunes. That'll help us get more noticed. We've been doing pretty good recently, but I would like to get some more rates and reviews. I think that'll help us out, help us improve, even if it's something negative, you know. We're always looking to improve.
Criticism always helps.
If you have any fancy questions, you can send it to us on Twitter at FifthDownFF. And yeah, peace out, Fifth Downers.